welcome back to my channel. If you're new, just welcome. My name is Kins, and I'm so happy that you're here, that you clicked on this video. If you saw the title of this video, today I am going to tell you our birth story with this little one. I gave birth 3 weeks ago today to our precious baby girl, Miss Logan Reese, and labor and delivery did not go anything like me and my husband thought it would or expected it to, but in the end, God is still good, and it brought us our precious, perfect, and healthy little miracle baby girl. So let's get into the story. So all through my pregnancy, I was researching and watching videos and reading books and listening to podcasts all about natural labor and delivery, and that's really the way that I wanted to go with giving birth to this little one, and that's what I was prepared for. Now, whenever we got towards the end of our pregnancy, baby was not dropping, and we weren't really concerned about it at first. That happens, and so we weren't really concerned. But as we started nearing that 40 weeks and she still wasn't dropping and was really high still, I was seeing a chiropractor, I was doing all the things, I was bouncing on my birth ball, I was drinking the tea, I was eating the dates, I was doing everything, and baby girl just was not dropping, and my cervix was not thinning or dilating really at all. So we went past the 40-week mark, and when we got to 41 weeks, our doctor decided to induce. Now, that wasn't our plan either. We were really hoping natural, spontaneous labor, but it is what it is. And so once we got to that 41-week mark, our doctor called and scheduled an induction for the next day. So we were trying to wrap our minds around this new labor experience with an induction, and knowing that inductions are a little bit more intense, wrapping our minds around most likely getting an epidural, which that's okay. It wasn't what we really wanted, but it's okay if I was going to do that. We weren't closed off to it. We were open to that possibility if it came to it, and so we were starting to wrap our minds around that. And so I had about 24 hours to learn about an induction. I hadn't learned about an induction because I didn't think that that was what was going to happen for us. So that 24-hour period, I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos, reading a bunch of articles, Googling a lot of things to learn about the induction process. And we went in for an induction it was Wednesday, October 21st. We went in at 5 p.m. and it was about 6 p.m. when we actually started the process. And so we started with Cervidil because obviously my cervix was still very thick and not dilated. And again, we're at 41 weeks and 1 day at this point, and there was no progression of my cervix. So we started the induction at 6 p.m. and things are going good. They put the Cervidil in, and I had been contracting. I had started contracting the day before anyway. They weren't super consistent. They would be consistent for a while and then they would space out again. So it wasn't the real thing, but I knew my body was trying to do what it was made to do. And even driving to the hospital on Wednesday, I had 3 contractions in the 10-minute drive it took to get to the hospital. So they were pretty inconsistent, but they were happening, and it was all in my back, which was not pleasant. So we get to the hospital. I'm still having contractions, again, not super consistent, but they are closer together at this point. So they're probably 8 to 10 minutes, just depending. And they, once the Cervidil started working, they started to get closer. So pretty soon they were about 6 minutes apart. Again, all back labor, all in my back. And over time, it was about 10 o'clock, my contractions increased in intensity and in interval really quickly. So just from the Cervidil, I was contracting every 1.5 minutes. I basically had like 10 seconds of rest in between my contractions. Again, all in my back, just really intense, really quickly. We thought that wouldn't really happen until the Pitocin phase, but apparently it can happen during the Cervidil phase. So that was unexpected. I did decide at about 10:30 to go ahead and get the epidural. I was really going back and forth with it, and we had my nurse check me before, and I was only dilated to a 3, and my contractions were 1.5 minutes apart. It was going to be a long labor process, and I knew I wouldn't get any sleep that night if I didn't do something about it. So I did go ahead and get the epidural at about 10:30 p.m. that night. Now, once I got the epidural, obviously the pain went away, but that's when things started to kind of go downhill. So after that, our nurse came in a little bit later and said she didn't like what the baby's heart rate did during my last contraction. So she wanted me to move positions, redo the baby's heart monitor, and see what would happen. So I switched positions, rolled to my other side, we moved the monitor, and we were gonna see how it went. And a little bit later she comes back in and oh, I know it was a scary story, huh? Yeah. So the nurse comes back in and again didn't like what her heart rate did during my contraction. She showed us what was happening, and the baby's heart rate was dropping after the peak of my contraction pretty consistently. So she said if it was happening simultaneously with the contraction as the contraction started, it wouldn't have been an issue. However, the issue is that it happened after the peak, so it meant that the baby was in stress. We continued to monitor her, kept just trying to switch positions. Maybe she didn't like the position I was in, and her heart rate kept dropping. Now, her heart rate was at a baseline of about 140, and there were times where I looked at the monitor and it said it was in the 70s. So pretty good drop, and we were honestly starting to get concerned too. The nurse really played it cool for a while, but we started to realize that this was a big deal and a big issue that we were having. So it was about 1 a.m. when our nurse decided to call our OB in. It was about 1:30 that the doctor got there, and she decided that we would try to break my water and see what happened then. Now, the nurse also took the Cervidil out at that point, and they broke my water. After they broke my water, the doctor went out and sat at a desk and watched the monitor of the baby while we got some rest. And the nurse came in a couple more times and tried to move my position because the baby's heart rate again just kept dropping. It was about 2:30 a.m. when the nurse came in and said that our doctor was out there and had been monitoring the baby for the last hour and had decided that it was time to do a C-section. Now, that was not at all what we wanted to hear, but in the time that the doctor came in and the time that she decided we need to go ahead with the C-section, me and my husband barely slept. We were watching the screen, listening to her heart rate, and we had kind of started to realize where this was gonna go anyway. Obviously not ideal, but it was terrifying just listening to her heart rate drop every single contraction. And honestly, the C-section was, I mean, it's kind of a scary process, especially if you don't know what to expect and you didn't know that it was gonna go there. But the time leading up to the C-section was definitely more stressful and a lot scarier, not knowing if our baby was going to be okay or not. By the time the doctor said C-section, it was scary, but it was almost a relief at the same time, which was really weird. So At this point, things move very quickly with a C-section. The nurse came in and she's telling us that we are gonna go for the C-section. She already had Ben scrubs ready to go, and she let us know that as soon as we get into the OR, she's gonna be here in like 5 minutes. It's not gonna take a long time. So that was 2:30 that they came in and told us that we would be having the C-section. And we were in the OR, and Miss Logan was born at 3:01 a.m. on October 22nd. It was a whirlwind. It does happen so fast, and it can be scary, I will say, and I haven't told anyone this, but they make your husband stay back until you're prepped and ready to go. And they moved me from my hospital bed to the OR table, and I definitely was scared. I definitely was very anxious, and knowing that I was about to get cut open was crazy to me, and it was a lot to take in, and it again was just all happening so fast. And I just remember that they moved me onto the OR table, and one, operating rooms are so cold, so cold. And I mean, you're having a baby, so you're totally naked, right? And I was laying there on the OR as they're prepping me, and the anesthesiologist is pumping more pain meds in, and things are just happening so quickly around me. And I remember looking up at the light, and I just focused on it, and I started to pray. And I was not praying for God's guidance in the procedure. I was really confident in the doctors, and this is something routine that they are used to. And so I wasn't praying for the experience. I was praising. Honestly, I just felt so moved in the way of thanking God for the baby, thanking God for the pregnancy, thanking God for allowing me to carry this baby for a long time. We didn't know that we would even be able to have a baby, and just thanking God for the experience and the opportunity, thanking God for the doctors that he put in our path. That sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, but just thanking him for everything that he put together, that these people, you know, we wondered why we got pregnant when we moved to Texas, and this could have been it. You know, we had the doctors that we needed, and the people, the nurses, the anesthesiologists, and the surgeons and everything. We had the people we needed in that room, and I just was confident in that. And all I could do is thank God for, even though things weren't going the way that we wanted them to or expected them to, I just felt so moved to thank him and praise him in that moment. And it definitely kept me grounded in that. I wouldn't say stress-free. I think it was still a little stressed just because everything was happening so fast. But I definitely felt a little more at ease. Ben and I, we were driving to the hospital, and we were talking and saying, you know, the induction wasn't the way that we thought things would go, and we didn't know where it was going to go from there. But whatever way this little one was brought into the world was the way that God intended for her to be brought into this world, and that's not up to us, and no one can choose it other than him, and that he would bring glory through it no matter how it all worked out. You know, we didn't anticipate getting pregnant as soon as we moved states away from all of our family, but it happened, and that was God's plan. And we didn't plan for an induction, but that was God's plan. And we didn't plan for a C-section, but that was God's plan for us and for our little one. And she came out perfectly healthy. We did find out after the C-section that the reason her heart rate kept dropping was because her cord was wrapped around her neck and was holding her up in my uterus. So yes, it is normal. It is a common thing for a baby's umbilical cord to be wrapped around their neck. That happens often, actually. However, it was the reason she wasn't dropping, and every contraction was putting more and more pressure on her neck and on her cord. So there was no way that she was going to make it through a birthing process, or at least an easy one, of a vaginal delivery. So it was scary, but gosh, we are so thankful to have a perfectly healthy little girl. She came out with nothing wrong with her, not a single thing. We thought that maybe she might need a little bit more from doctors and nurses, but she was perfectly healthy. And so we are so thankful for the doctor making that call. We are thankful for the whole team. All of our nurses were amazing. The anesthesiologist was amazing. Just really made us feel comfortable, even though everything was happening so fast and was overwhelming. That is the story of how our little one came into the world. Obviously was not what we expected, but it was the way that God intended, and we are so thankful. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my other videos. I definitely want to update my hospital bag video because with the C-section, I really didn't use a lot of the things in my bag, so just an updated C-section version of my hospital bag, as well as a what to expect in a C-section video, because I had no idea what to expect. So be on the lookout for those videos, and we'll see you next time. Bye, baby. Here. Here. Hey.